What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Perhaps. We're back to back, week after week. Last week, I talked a bit about where I was for a few months, and we're right back the very next Friday. I'm telling y'all, we're back. Perhaps episode number 32. And last week, I talked a bit about, where I've been and gave some encouragements for these trying times. Today, we're going to talk a bit about some book news, a little message for Valentine's Day, and of course, the Bad Bunny halftime show. And we're going to ask some deep questions. Was it revolutionary? Was it totally not revolutionary? Was it an act of resistance? Was it absolutely not an act of resistance? There's a lot of arguing going on these days about this. But anyway, we'll get to it. And to start off, thank you for being here, everybody. This morning, I realized, I counted it on the calendar, that we have 131 days until my book comes out. My book, You Don't Need a Calling, an anti-capitalist manifesto for a life of purpose. And I'm really excited for this thing to be out. It's getting closer and closer. I feel anxious, mostly because I want to do a whole bunch of stuff around the book, like different types of videos and writing and all that, just to get people excited about the book. And I also feel really excited for you all to read it. And I'm excited to hear what you all think about it. I think you all will really resonate a lot with it. And so that's coming out. You can pre-order it right now. Don't wait 131 days to get the book. Pre-order it. It helps a lot. It helps bookstores know to push it out there for other people to get it because they see people are pre-ordering it. So I'd appreciate that. And the other thing I learned today, we just locked in a spot for the book launch event. We're going to do it the night before the book comes out, June 22nd. And it's going to be at Third Window Brewing in Santa Barbara, California. And this is also where we had the book launch event for my first book in 2022 for The God Who Riots. And so we got to connect over there. And also hosted by Way Collective, a spiritual community over here that I'm part of. And it's going to be exciting. Hopefully some of you listening could even show up, Santa Barbara, all the way over here. I live in Central Coast. I live in Santa Maria. But maybe we can even do some events outside of California. Let me know, y'all. It would be cool to do some also in like Northern or Southern California. But I'd like to travel a bit and talk to y'all about the book. Do some cool little live events. We just need some connects and some money to travel over there. Let me know, y'all, if you got some connects or you have a spot or a group you think we can make it work with. That would be really cool. And so keep an eye out for that. It's coming in June. It's going to come very quickly, everybody. Don't sleep on it. And also, the day this is coming out, the day after it is Valentine's Day. And your boy is single, which is fine. It's not a big deal. It's not something I think about a lot until I go to the grocery store and see all this Valentine's Day stuff everywhere. And so that's how I remember that Valentine's Day is coming back around. And I just wanted to encourage some of y'all in this time where loneliness is one of the biggest problems us humans face. For the single folks out there who are maybe feeling a little bad for being single, for not having a partner right now, or maybe even those of you who have a partner who are just like kind of sad that it's not as good of a relationship as it used to be. Those who are a little iffy about this whole love thing, I just want to remind you all that love that you may think you're lacking right now is in you. And it was always in you. That love that you think you need to go and get from someone else or through someone else was always inside you. That love always belonged to you from the beginning. And other people just spark the love that's already there. And so during this Valentine's Day and this season of love, I encourage you all to have a bigger view of love and realize that it can be sparked in all kinds of creative ways. It doesn't have to be with a romantic partner. It can be with your friends, with your family, with your community, in all kinds of ways. There's all kinds of ways it can be sparked, but that love is always in you. And so I want you to think of that this Valentine's Day. If you need it to be sparked and you're thinking because you don't have a partner, it can't be sparked. Nah, that's not true. Just be a bit more creative, okay? And yeah, loneliness is really a thing right now. And perhaps we should do another episode on loneliness, especially with increasingly individualistic society, increasing isolation, modern tech, everything being so much about convenience, which when in reality what it's really about is any tech that can help us do things without interacting with others. Well, anything that can help us just stay inside and not talk to anybody, that tech tends to get more and more popular. And then it becomes like a necessary thing, not even a cool extra thing to have. That's the evolution we've been seeing in society. And but yeah, let's put a pin in that and talk a bit about the Super Bowl. Seahawks. My sister and her whole family, huge Seahawks fans. My sister married into it, and then all their kids became Seahawks fans. It was epic, an epic day, especially remembering very clearly, if you're a Seahawks fan, this has just been on your mind every day for 11 years when the Seahawks lost against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And so this was an epic day. It's like this justice, finally. I'm proud of y'all. I don't really have a team. When I was a little kid, I remember I saw the Super Bowl. I think it was in the year 2000. I saw the Rams beat the Titans, and I became a Rams fan. And so I was a Rams fan for a while, but I didn't really watch football that much or sports in general. I think I was more into music and movies and making movies and music and reading books and then later writing. And so, yeah, I didn't really think that much about sports. But now I think when somebody asks me what my favorite team is, I say something different like almost every time. But right now, huge Seahawks fan. Please welcome me. Don't be too hard on me for posing. Let's just celebrate. Let's just have a good time. Go Seahawks. I'm proud of y'all. But yeah, besides the game, there was a little show in the middle of it that caused a lot of backlash from the moment it was announced. Because it was Bad Bunny. You had people being like, what? Bad Bunny? Bad Bunny? He's not American. And then a bunch of people had to remind them, Puerto Rico's part of the United States. Also, y'all weren't mad at all the other times we had non-Americans. All those people from England? Y'all weren't saying Coldplay. They're not American. How? This is an American game. This is American football. How could we have Coldplay? No. Y'all were fine before. Really, it was just old-fashioned racism. And of course, within the context of the mass deportations going on, the rampant racism against Latinos, that's all within the context as well. And so, of course, the surfacey message of the people who were mad about it were saying like, oh, we just don't like that he was critical of ICE and therefore critical of the American government. And we want pro-America people, when really underneath that was always just racism. And so what was interesting is some of these people, such as Turning Point USA, decided to have an alternative Super Bowl halftime show for people to turn the channel over to during this halftime show. And I remember seeing a lot of these right-wing influencer people excited about it when they first had the idea. And then as it got closer and closer and they realized how cool Bad Bunny is and how lame Kid Rock is, I think it became harder and harder for them to pretend that they were on the cooler side. They sure as hell pretended. And I think there's a lot of just normal people who aren't super committed to a political position who have been really manipulated by a lot of right-wing propaganda over the years, especially as they've talked so much about being pro-free speech and how you should vote Republican if you're tired of people saying that you can't make jokes. And a lot of normies bought into that. But then seeing how this all went down, I think a lot of normies were like, wait, should I trust the people that are getting all worked up about this? Because they're getting really worked up about this. And it's just Bad Bunny. It's just a Puerto Rican singer at the NFL halftime show. This ain't that big of a deal. And then you watch it, and these people making such a big deal out of it look even more silly. Because it was a lot of very positive, very inclusive, very celebratory show for Bad Bunny. And then if you change the channel over the All-American halftime show for Turning Point USA, you see just country, a guy singing country lyrics that are usually put in skits to make fun of country music, saying, I just want to drive my truck. I just want to drink my beer. And then Kid Rock lip syncing. I heard they did like 2 to 5 takes of each performance because it wasn't live. And not only was it not live, but they did several takes. And the take they chose, he was obviously lip syncing. Like he just had the microphone completely down and you could still hear it going. And of course, many people pointed out the hypocrisy of how could this be like the good Christian American alternative halftime show with Kid Rock when like those of us who are a bit older can remember that in the 90s, evangelical mothers didn't let their kids listen to Kid Rock because of how inappropriate his music was. I think a lot of people realize this is all just a big game. So many people are just pretending to like certain things, pretending to dislike other things because of some political agenda. And yet that's what the right accuses everyone else of doing all the time. People are starting to realize like, oh, this was always just projection, wasn't it? Even Nick Fuentes, popular neo-Nazi content creator, influencer dude, he's gotten a big audience, especially over the last couple of years, but he's been going for like 10 years. And he did this show. Some of his clips went viral from his live stream where he was talking about how silly the right looks right now, or the white right he was talking about, because he'll get real specific. And he was saying how it's like you have the white right complaining, getting offended, making such a big deal over Bad Bunny halftime show, and then they have this lame alternative, and it just makes right-wingers look silly. It just makes them look weak. And he was like, we're clearly losing here. And then he just launched into a whole bunch of racism, as he usually does. But it was interesting to see because people, if you're really paying attention, you could see that there's layers of disguised language, coded language, layers of pretending. And underneath all that are these political agendas. But usually it's hard for normies to see under the surface of all these messages, especially with the clout Turning Point has gotten since Charlie Kirk was killed. A lot of people were just totally swooned by Turning Point over the last few months. And for people to actually see something like this and see like, oh, wait, these people are kind of lame. I think that's a significant cultural win for the moment. So that was interesting to see. and like I said, people who are older are able to see, oh yeah, this is how the right has always been, especially Gen X people. I'm a younger millennial, like just a few years away from the cutoff to Gen Z, but especially Gen X, like have the memory of being teenagers in the 80s and or a little older than that, and having these memories of Republicans always influencing their parents to not let them listen to certain music, watch certain movies, saying video games will make you violent. Republican politicians fighting to have the explicit label sticker on the cases of CDs. See, a lot of you don't realize like that's a whole sort of recent history. I mean, you all just see the little E next to the song on the streaming service, but it was a whole thing to get that explicit label on there and to scare parents about the content that your kid may be listening to and how there may be occult demonic messages on there. And then, of course, yeah, just a lot of being very offended about other perspectives outside of white Christian safe perspectives and censoring media. It's like, yeah, we remember that they were doing that 80s and 90s. But then over the last like 10 to 15 years, certain right-wing influencers were able to flip the narrative and put out this whole propaganda story that now the left is the one that's overly offended about everything and trying to censor you because they disagree with you. And the right is all about free speech and freedom of thought, freedom of expression. And now you have some people telling this story as like, now all of a sudden you have right-wingers turning into the left. The right-wingers are all about tolerance and free speech, but now they're becoming like the left as they're trying to censor people. Or you have people throwing around the term the woke right, which is really them saying that it's right-wingers who are acting like left-wingers by being offended about things and wanting to censor things. When in reality, those who are older or those who are just able to look in the past and pay attention can see there was never a flipping of sides. The right was always like this. They never stopped. And those who really are able to recognize that are those who grew up in Christian fundamentalist households and realize there never was a point where their fundamentalist parents became super pro free speech and freedom of expression in the household. Like, it was just always projection. But here's another really important point. This whole narrative of trying to figure out who are the super offended ones, who are the real snowflakes, is it the right or is it the left? That's also all nonsense. Because in reality, it's not a right-wing thing, it's not a left-wing thing, or conservative or liberal thing or whatever. It's a human thing. That's something all of us humans deal with, of being offended when people disagree with you and reacting with anger and cutting people off because they disagree with you, or trying to censor people, or all of that. Just it's from these old trauma triggers we all have. And when people say certain things, it sparks that. And we react in ways that are like way angrier than we wish we could react, because we haven't dealt with those trauma triggers. We have stress in our lives. We have a lack of understanding how to properly be in conflict with others and how to deal with conflict. We have an increasingly hard time communicating with others, especially with where we're talking about increasingly individualistic, isolated society. That's just an issue we're all dealing with as human beings. Dysregulated nervous systems, undealt with trauma from our past, inability to properly communicate with those who disagree with us. That's just a human thing. But people could get confused and think, oh, the thing that person who is really angry and offended, the thing that they believe is why they're so angry and offended. When really, that behavior is just going to manifest in whatever political position you have or whatever religion you have. Because it's a human thing. It's this deeper psychological thing that you're dealing with. And so people get confused sometimes and think, oh, we just need to avoid extreme ideologies. Because when you get into these extreme ideologies, and what they really mean by extreme is just like picking a side and not being on the fence. But they say when you commit yourself to certain ideologies, then you become angry and always offended, overly sensitive, trying to censor others, not being able to have a disagreement with others. And it's like, no, it's just how it's manifested because that's the ideology you have at the time. And it's a human thing. And so I really wish people understood that, as people once again argue, as they have for years now, many years, as they once again argue, who are the real snowflakes? Or they try to come up with these stories of like, well, this side was the snowflakes, and then they weren't the snowflakes, and then they were the snowflakes again, and then they kind of were, but then this particular faction within them became the real snowflakes, and then they weren't. No. This is just how we all are. And we have to, as a society, come to terms with that and talk about, okay, how do we actually deal with these deep psychological issues? We have to go deeper, people. It's not just about convincing people of our political worldview or religion or anything like that. No, it goes deeper. So, yeah, let's move on. The other big question people had about this show, which was, I don't know if I said, amazing show, amazing performance. Definitely, I mean, we don't even have to say it was better than the All-American halftime show. No, it was better on its own. And the question people have is, but is it revolutionary? And then you have people posting these hot takes, hot take after hot take, because people got to get their hot take out there quick about the politics of it or the lack of politics in it. And there was just immediate confusion I saw online because these content creators who need to put out their quick hot takes, I think they're out of touch and not realizing that people are just enjoying it. Like people are still having fun here. People are enjoying what they're seeing. And then the people who are like, yeah, but what about We'll get to it. I don't want to skip around here, but I want to introduce this right. Because you saw people saying, look, guys, this isn't revolutionary because we're still dealing with the same issues. ICE is still as dangerous and violent as they were before the show. Trump is still president. We're still struggling against we're still struggling against imperialism. We're still struggling against ICE, still struggling against capitalism. And this show did nothing but pacify people. This wasn't resistance. But here's the thing with that argument. You had people responding, confused, saying, who said it was revolutionary? Who are you arguing with? What are you talking about? And the truth is, those people making that argument did see some people saying that it was revolutionary resistance. I saw some of those posts. But the thing is, content creators don't tend to miss, they're often just contending with randoms, random people, random strangers that they see on their feed pop up. And it can confuse them and make them think this is the big narrative that I should make content arguing against. Or they see a few bigger creators make that argument, but then they forget there's just everybody else who's not living like a content creator, always looking at all the different takes on the feed and trying to use that to make your own take. Everybody else is working or with their family or dealing with their own big pile of problems. And then you post your hot take, which is a reaction to this other hot take, which is a reaction to another hot take, to another hot take, to another hot take, to the thing. And everyone else is like, what are we talking about? Who are you arguing with? What is the argument here? And it's just immediate confusion. And I really wish some of these content creators weren't so out of touch in that way. And I think what we saw is that there were people who did see it as revolutionary because they were able to recognize the significance of celebrating this culture that is actively being demonized and witness the backlash around it and witness Bad Bunny complete this celebration in front of everybody. And it inspired people. It inspired people to struggle against the anti-immigrant narrative and the anti-immigrant violence action. It inspired people to be revolutionary. But here's the thing. That's not how everyone understood the show. There's plenty of people who watched it and loved it and weren't inspired to be revolutionary, weren't inspired to resist at all. They were able to watch it and just say, oh, that was a cool show. That was awesome. I love Bad Bunny. And I think those who are critiquing the show and critiquing the way that people are responding to the show are able to recognize the bigger picture here of, oh, well, how can it be revolutionary if it's not changing people's minds, if it's not inspiring action from those who weren't interested in action beforehand? I think what people got to realize is if you were inspired to be revolutionary from this performance, it's because that revolutionary spirit was already in you. And it's also very important. What I mean by revolutionary is to be a threat to the system. Was this show on its own a threat to the system? No. However, it's not as simple as just casting it aside from there or saying it's not revolutionary or take it out of the revolutionary conversation. Because then the other question is, well, did it inspire you, though, to be a threat to the system? And for some of you, for a lot of you, it did. And I think at that point, we need to have the conversation of what makes art revolutionary? And realize it's about the relationship between the viewer of the art and the art itself. What the viewer brings to the art as they experience it. And for some people or many people, it can inspire them to action. And so in a way, you can say that piece of art was meant to do that. Or you could say that piece of art was revolutionary. And you could also say it totally wasn't, because other people look at it and aren't inspired toward action. But that's the point where you realize, okay, we have to be more nuanced in the way we talk about art. And again, realize if you saw that show as revolutionary, it's because you already had that revolutionary spirit in you. Just like I was talking about earlier about love. It's because you already were inspired to be a threat to the system. And when you already have that spirit in you, you can be inspired from all kinds of things, from all kinds of musical performances, pieces of art, movies, TV shows, conversations, random trees that you see at the park. It's a way of being in relationship with everything around you. That's what it's really about. So it's not as simple to say, oh yeah, that's not revolutionary. It's just pacifying people. So therefore, it's bad, or throw it away or discard it or whatever. And it's like, yeah, there's some people that was pacifying. There's some people that would watch it and be like, oh, the world's getting better. We're all loving Latinos again, so we don't have to do much. The fight's almost over, guys. But again, it's not that simple. It's like many things are all happening at once. I think that's why it started so many conversations from so many different perspectives. And at the same time, like I said, we're still facing the same problems. Like art can inspire us in that moment to take action because we're already inspired. So it continues that inspiration. And it's not the solution. It's not the weapon that we need. The fight still needs to be fought. A lot of work still needs to be done. And we keep going. And there is a history of the powers that be using entertainment to pacify people, or using these symbolic cultural wins to make people think that the fight is over, the fight has been won, and to just make people feel like they won when really nothing has changed. That is a legitimate problem. And Bad Bunny halftime show, Apple Music NFL event is absolutely part of that too. And at the same time, there are those of us who can witness that, understand what it is, and still be inspired to take action. But the art on its own doesn't inspire you or not inspire you. It's about what you bring to it. It's about the relationship you have with it. And so I inspire you all to look for that revolutionary spirit in all things. Just like St. Ignatius inspired his monks to look for God in all things. And the liberation theologians would say, yeah, there's no difference. Same thing. God, revolution, that willingness to resist and be a threat to the system and to build a world where we're all liberated. That is what God is pulling us toward. So of course, same thing. And like I said, the fight is far from over. There's still a lot to be done. And we need abolition of these unjust systems like ICE and DHS, not just reform. So it's going to take a lot more than art. But of course, art will always be part of that. Because here's the other thing. This podcast also can be viewed the exact same way. This podcast isn't revolutionary. All those think pieces about the Bad Bunny show aren't revolutionary. However, you can interact with these things and be inspired to be revolutionary. It's about what you bring to it. And the other thing I wanted to mention, as I'm seeing people get really excited about this Bad Bunny halftime show, I'm seeing a lot of white people very excited, very happy, which is cool. But I think there's a risk of over-romanticizing Latino culture that just continues to make Latino people more and more distant, feel more and more, or appear more and more different? Because I'm seeing people look at the Latino culture on display through the performance, the partying, dancing, drinking, the wedding, the way of being in community with each other, and white people being like, that's the America I want to be a part of. I wish I was, it's like they're so close to saying, I wish I was Latino. Like, I wish I could have that, be a part of that. This is the real America. This is what America should be. And that's cool. That's fun. And there's a risk of over romanticizing and forgetting that, first of all, Latinos are humans. They're just humans. we don't have anything special that makes us be in community with each. I mean, biologically, there's nothing special that makes us be in community with each other in a more special way than other humans can. But secondly, I think white people have to realize, because what's underneath that is a bit of a lament about their own culture. Then what white people have to realize is that all these other cultures were developed over time because of their proximity with each other. And even Latino culture is a mixture of a bunch of different cultures. It's some Spanish culture, several different indigenous cultures, other immigrant cultures that came into Latin America over time, and just being with each other, talking to each other, singing with each other, partying with each other, struggling together. While white culture, whiteness, is about not being with each other, but being above others. Because whiteness, to begin, just like a few centuries ago, in the beginning of colonizing these lands, whiteness was a smashing together of diverse European cultures, like English and Spanish and French, and just putting them all together and saying, we're just white. And as white people, we're above these other people with all their diverse cultures that we're just stuffing together and calling black or brown. And there's a culture that is clearly erased through colonialism and through white supremacy. We think of the victims of white supremacy, but they're also erasing their own culture at the same time. To be white. Whiteness is about assimilation and a relationship to power over others. That's why, like, Germans and Irish people who immigrated over here over the last 100 or so years, when they immigrated to the United States, weren't considered white. And then as they assimilated and became more affluent, above others, more money, better position in society, more like the white people who are already there, then they're just considered white. And today it's like, of course they're white. What do you mean? It seems totally incomprehensible to imagine a time where they weren't considered white. Because that's what whiteness actually is. It's not an actual cultural identity. It's just about being above others. And all you white people out there, you're not just white. You have your family's from somewhere that isn't, your family's not from white land, okay? Whiteness is something else. And so I think that's why you're seeing a lot of white people who are like, dang, where's my culture? Because whiteness is first and foremost about the erasure of culture to begin with. However, we're all just human. You white people have access to the things that you may feel like you don't have access to as white people, which is like a special kind of community, living with each other, talking with each other, partying with each other, struggling together. That's just a human thing. Again, it's just a human thing. And you can have that. You just got to change your priorities. Instead of seeing the point of life as being more and more successful than other people and seeing yourself as having made it in life by being over others and being served by others, instead seeing the point of life as being with each other, connecting with each other and struggling together and partying with each other. And that's it. When you can change those priorities, you can have that too in your own way. I think what we're seeing now more than ever is that we really need community. And we need creative ways of building community. Person by person, people by people, community by community. That's what it's all about. That's what we got to commit ourselves to. We need it now more than ever. So there's some thoughts on kind of the halftime show, but really all the discourse around the halftime show, because it gets people thinking, it gets people talking. I think that's interesting. That's fun. I'm glad we got to talk about it on this podcast. Go pre-order that book. Okay. You don't need a calling. Google it. You get it from anywhere, but bookshop.org. You could also support some independent bookstores by getting it from there, but I get the same royalty from wherever you order it. Go get it. Thank you. And I'll see y'all next week. All right. Bye-bye.